So in this video, I wanted to take a quick look at some wire strippers. We want to look at the super cheap one, a mid-range one, and a high-end one, and figure out which is the best wire stripper for you. This is the cheapest one that I've probably ever used, maybe even ever seen. It's a very simple design. It's two pieces of stamped steel with a little notch cut out of the end right there. It has a bolt right here that you could just kind of unscrew with a standard screwdriver and move that bolt up or down. As you move it up, the hole here will get larger and larger because it'll stop. The nut actually stops this piece from scissoring completely shut. So basically you would move it up and that hole gets larger. Eventually you get to right where you need. That way you could pull this, strip it, and pull it. It's actually a pretty bad system because there's no gauge here. It's really imprecise. You're just kind of getting as close as you can by eyeballing it. You're probably gonna mess up your wire a few times, but eventually you'll get there. And then this can loosen up over time, but if you torque it down pretty well, it does the job. It has this really janky spring here so that it doesn't you still don't have to open and close it by yourself, but you can see the spring is just sort of off on the side. It eventually falls off, it gets caught on your pants. It's just really not great. So that's the cheapest wire cutter, or wire stripper rather, that you're gonna find. I would definitely not recommend something like this. Here's a mid-range wire stripper. You can see now it becomes a much more professional product, but it's a very similar design. Here we do see a AWG gauge, so the American wire gauge. And now we see, oh, I need a 12 gauge or 16 gauge, whatever it is, and you know to use that hole. That way you have very repeatable performance. Even if you don't know which gauge or wire it is, you know enough to use 16 again if 16 worked before. And I don't want to knock my camera over, but you could see how this would work. Up top you have your other features here. You have some gauges up top. There's a wire cutter here, your ignition terminal, kind of a crimper there. It's got all sorts of stuff that we don't really get into or don't need to get into right now. But basically the point here is you have something larger that you can get more leverage on, and you have preset sizes, and you have that AWG just kind of pointed out there. That's not like a fancy feature. It's not like this is the height of wire stripping technology. This is just the base level of what you want from a standard product. This one doesn't have any of that. It's very imprecise. It's very simple. Can it do the job? Sure. But you have to adjust it. The adjustment may not be perfect. It's gonna take you a couple of tries. It's just really not a very scientific product. Now we're moving over to what I would call a high-end wire cutter and stripper. The brand doesn't really matter. This is a Cronus, and this is just something you'd find off Amazon or Hampton Bay or something like that. Pretty simple, but the device itself is fundamentally changing. What happens here is you're moving from a plier shape to something that it's actually pulling the wire. It's doing the work itself. So you're not putting it in here the way you would with a set of pliers. You're actually putting the wire in like this. So you put it down here. This piece clamps it, this piece clamps it, and this top piece actually pulls. And then you're good. And this comes right off. It's really a nice system. And one of the nice things about it is it's pretty much self-adjusting. Because this top jaw won't cut through your wire. It just goes down as far as it needs to go, and then it bites, and it starts to tear at that outer coating. So it's not a perfect system, but it does work quite well. There's some screws here in case you need to replace the parts or do some adjustment. It's a pretty nice device. There's, if you do check out the finer points, you could see wire stripper and the different sizing. There's, you know, quarter, half inch, all that is right there. And then here we do have your crimping tools down there. Some basic explanation here. This is installation crimper, then non-insulated crimper. So kind of just the standard stuff. And then what else? Made in Taiwan, patent pending in West Germany, China. These kind of standard stuff there. Nice coated handle, which is always nice. You know, and it's fairly comfortable. You have to use this thing for a few hours a day. It's a nicely built device. It does, and it's easy to miss this, have a set of wire cutters right here. So if you do have to do some cutting, that is possible. And this probably won't work that well. Again, this camera is getting in the way, but definitely quite doable. No problem there. This piece does tend to wear out, and it's not really something you could sharpen that well. So that's kind of an issue, but if you have a nice device like this, I would say focus on using it for doing your stripping, and then do your cutting with kind of whatever you have. And here's that device. Putting it in here. You're lining up where you want the cut to go with this upper tooth. So right there. It's clamping, it's adjusting, and it's pulling. It's really a very clever device. You know, is it professional grade? If you were a professional electrician, is it what you need? I honestly couldn't tell you. It's not my level of expertise, but I can tell you day to day, if you need some good wire stripping and a sub $20 product, something like this is what you're looking for. Again, the Cronus brand, it served me well. Is this a great brand? I really have no idea. But I would say this sort of design with that self-adjustment and that crimping, and that pulling action is what you want. If you want to save a few bucks, you can go with the old-fashioned one where you're just gonna give it the old cut and pull. That is fine too, but it's worth it to invest in a nicer product since this one's gonna last you years and years. So that about covers it. Thanks for watching.